Big C Sports have been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos. I've got to study up a little bit more, Big C, so once I get the study down, we'll bring it back. There's nothing wrong with them good old boys down south. I love you guys so much, but I think your prodigal child, POTUS, the heat was so high on POTUS, he decided to get out of the country. Big C, what's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, you know, the heat, I don't know if we got heat down here, but Charlton, we got a lot of water.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about flooding. Everything here, got to go out and buckle down a few things so it don't wash away.
Yeah.
But, I didn't realize that a lake could flood,
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing when you think about it. Today's a beautiful day. It's actually May the 22nd, 2017. And I know all over the country there's so many people excited about the world of basketball. And we were thinking that Golden State and Cleveland would go undefeated facing each other. We looked at the horses racing and the Preakness. That had a decent run over the weekend. A few things going on in baseball, guys hitting home runs again. And, of course, Lord Stanley's Cup is always in play. But I want to ask you about POTUS on his trip on Air Force One to Saudi Arabia. They pulled up the red carpet for Donald Trump. Maybe they don't get the American news, Big C.
To another country and tell them how should they be, as far as their political realm and how they treat people. It's quite interesting, but all of a sudden today, in a press conference, Charlton, he said, I didn't say Israel's name to the Russians.
Yeah.
But nobody even asked him the question.
Right. I thought that was funny, too. Yeah, come out and say things that other people are wondering about, but this guy, I love Donald Trump for the fact that he is very bold, and oftentimes as our president, he can run around the country and get away with everything. I think that good old boy that heard him talk about grabbing women by the vagina, he was saying that it's a shame that he got fired and Donald Trump became president. Big C, your thoughts on that?
Billy Bush got fired in that scenario, Charlton. But, as you look at the president running around, one of the more interesting things, Charlton, I spend too much time reading when it's raining because I can't go outside and put it I'm sitting around and I'm looking at Kelly, the former FBI director that they appointed as special counsel to oversee this White House investigation, this political investigation, Charlton. And we keep talking about how sports and politics keeps paralleling.
Yeah.
Now, there was an incident several years ago in the NFL with a running back named Ray Rice, who played for the Baltimore Ravens at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And Kelly was appointed by the NFL as a special prosecutor to find out if there was any collusion within the NFL to keep Ray Rice out of the NFL.
Yeah.
Now, Charlton, we've seen that collusion has been admitted in the NFL before. Matter of fact, it was admitted with Donald Trump and the USFL when they fought them over television rights.
That's right.
It happened, a decade earlier with the United States football, or with the World Football League back in the 70s. Prosecutor.
Yeah.
He worked for the NFL in that fashion. This is how sports and politics parallel each other.
Yeah.
But not only that, Charlton, the law firm that he worked for in D.C., they represented Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, the president's daughter and son-in-law. Now, ironically, the acting attorney general appointed them, knowing that this took place. They didn't make it knowledgeable to the American public.
I know.
that they were already representing the Trump family.
Yeah.
But now he's going to put him as a special prosecutor, and he's going to be overseeing the election. Now, he's already proven that the collusion didn't exist in the NFL, yet everybody knows that it does.
Yeah.
Now he's going to say that collusion didn't exist in this presidential campaign. It's ironic if the American public just sit up and turn beyond just the cover page of a book, they would find out what's inside of it, Charlton.
Well, thinking about finding out what's inside of something, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California. POTUS and Ryan, they're trying to push their health care plan through, and they're calling for, it almost was, I had to read it 3 times because I wasn't sure if I the glasses they don't give you the right vocal point, Big C, an $800 billion cut in Medicaid. I don't understand how the elderly and people who are poor will benefit from that. And a lot of those people voted for him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Not only talk about the cut in Medicaid, Charlton, you're talking about the cut in the SNAP program, the food stamp program that feeds so many needy families in America, Charlton, and a few other programs that are cutting the budgets on Social Security, Charlton. So if you're cutting out these programs from people who desperately need them, now how is that going to and also make the Affordable Care Act? Now you think about it. Medicaid, Charlton, the Affordable Care Act, okay? They're actually synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
So if you cut Medicaid, all of you people who vote for Trump, think about your parents, your grandparents who rely on Medicaid, and a lot of young children in America, Charlton, rely on Medicaid, okay? It's not just elderly. There's a lot of young children that rely on that social benefit to be able to get medical coverage.
Yeah.
Now, why are you cutting programs coming in as president? And here's a guy whose family can afford any type of medical care, even without being the president, okay?
Yeah.
And everybody in Congress also. But you're cutting benefits from those people who voted for you, those people who desperately need it.
Oh, yeah.
And how are cutting benefits going to create jobs in America? This is what I don't understand. When a person's too sick...
right now, but I was just wondering why Netanyahu, they met with him, they gave him a red carpet treatment with Air Force One, and then they talked about a $20 billion I guess, bail or loan to the United States of America for what? What's worth $20 billion that they're going to have to give money to us to help them? They're the ones who we're going to get oil from, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, as it's trying to look, he's trying to do things on the world stage. You know, Trump is staying away from the problems here within the U.S. He's leaving this budget up to Congress. Congress is going to be the ones whether it fails or passes. But if it fails, he's going to say, well, I didn't have my hands on it.
Yeah.
The problem is, Charlton, that he's leaving the American public behind. He's putting more interest in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia than what he is here in America.
Yeah.
Now he goes out and cuts this $350 billion arms deal with the Arabs, okay?
Yeah.
$350 billion. You got to think about it. America already has this stuff in reserve. So if you make $350 billion on an arms deal, why are you cutting $800 billion from, Medicaid? It doesn't make sense. If you bring it in cash flow, why are you cutting the entitlement programs that are here in America that people have earned over the decades, Charlton?
And just doesn't make any sense. But a lot of things, it makes about as much sense as the Cleveland Cavaliers coming home and losing a game at home to Boston when they could have gone up 3 games to none. And obviously, maybe the networks or the powers that be, there's a lot of people behind the Golden Curtain, what they call it, the Wizard of Oz? Say that LeBron James can't score in the 4th period, Big C, when he's the best player in the universe. So tell me what happened. Did the Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Oakland Raiders down to Las Vegas?
Well, LeBron James had scored the last 19 minutes of the game. So there was a long extended drought in the second half from LeBron James. But even Kevin Love, you think about Kevin Love, he started off that game 6 for 6 from 3-point range.
Yeah.
And he iced down in a hurry.
Yeah.
No one from the Cavaliers after the first half could get into a rhythm. I think they kind of lulled themselves to sleep when they went into the locker room thinking that, hey, we're just matching the Golden State Warriors point for point.
Yeah.
But ironically, the Boston Celtics had no quit in them. Brad Stevens did a marvelous job keeping his team in the game last night. They had their best first half, ironically, of the series last night.
Yeah.
Even though they were trailing by 16 points, Charlton.
Yeah.
They were out without their great Isaiah Thomas last night with an injury.
Yeah.
But, this team fought through it, and they played, resounding basketball.
And they did it after, I think, their biggest loss in playoff history for that franchise, Big C, the Boston Celtics, coming back on the road, winning at Cleveland. I tell you what it does from a fan point of view, and we know that when you don't have people betting on a series, Vegas doesn't make any money, and there's more money made outside of Vegas than there is in Vegas. But you get people from the Eastern Seaboard that are willing to tune in to the next game, because whether the series goes 5 or 6 is not going to be a 4-game sweep. It keeps people involved. It keeps the television revenues high. It makes basketball relevant from the championship point of view. And I wonder if we'll see the same thing happen in their next game at Cleveland, or does Cleveland come back and play the way they're supposed to play? Big C, your thoughts?
People that are hurting, ironically, in Vegas, because people would have bet the house on that game last night that Cleveland would have wiped, Boston away by at least 20 points. That there were a lot of people laying big money on Cleveland last night.
You're talking to one of them, Big Z.
People walking around looking like Charleston, okay? All they went right now this morning in Cleveland, So there's some people right now out there calling in favors, begging, can you help me out? Right now, crying because, I would have thought that there was no chance, especially at halftime, Charleston, that down 16 looked like there was no life in this ball club.
Yeah.
Cleveland was just running up and down the court, having fun.
It reminded me of the Super Bowl 51 when Atlanta had the same kind of happening against the New England Patriots, Big C. And I love the sport game, and I know that Magic Johnson told us all back in the day at CBS Sports, and he said, I want to thank CBS for giving us 7 games, because no one wants to see a 7 or 4-game sweep. We want to see at least 5 or 7 games in these series, Big C. I know so many people want to get to the Cleveland and Golden State series. Well, Golden State, just like Cleveland, I was one of the good old boys that was starting to lead the way of Cleveland just because I thought they were so physical, even though Golden State can get up and down the court. But seeing Cleveland lose last night and the way they lost, it's as if they forgot what they were. Who did the late Dennis Green said they were who we thought they were? Well, Cleveland last night, it was me like the Las Vegas Shuffle more than they just losing focus, Big C.
They were in the game. Boston, you got to give them credit. They did what they needed to do to get back in the flow of the game. They never gave up.
Yeah.
This was a team that continued to hustle. They kept the pressure on Cleveland, and Cleveland started settling for the three-point shot in the second half. No one could even find the rim. LeBron was off so badly, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you talk about LeBron going to the paint, that's all he did was go to the paint. He didn't go to the rim. Normally he finishes at the basket.
Yeah.
He was trying to finish away from the basket, and that was the difference last night. LeBron can have a bad game. He can. You're allowed to have that every 2 to 3 years, and he had his last night. But he won't repeat that performance again, Charlton. So Boston needs to be really leery of the king, because he's going to come out wearing his crown the next round.
Yeah, definitely. So, Big C, and speaking of crown, I want to say this segment is sponsored by... Mark. They've been around half a century, Big C. We can do it in all 50 states, even several continents around the world. And I want to say, if you need insurance for athletic insurance and events, tweet out to Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, the #1 network in the United States of America. Big C, I want to ask your thoughts on this. I look at what's happened with the Cleveland series, and I know so many people, they thought it was an anomaly that had happened. Now, we turn our eyes to Golden State and San Antonio. The same kind of series. People were thinking that Golden State is going to run these guys out of the gym, but because Pop is such a great coach, I'm not going to say pride matters, because everybody has pride at this level. It's about execution. Okay, Golden State, because Cleveland lost, if they go undefeated into the playoffs, they'll be the first team in history, I think, that did that, Big C. So do they have a reason, or maybe a letdown coming the same way maybe Cleveland did? Because the Warriors don't go to Las Vegas as many times as Cleveland, as far as I know.
Well, Charlton, when you look at this series, there's an ironic part about this series that many people don't understand.
Yeah.
Mike Brown, who is coaching the Warriors right now, he coached under Popovich, okay?
Yeah.
So he has carnal knowledge of Popovich. Steve Kerr played under Popovich. So when you look at those two angles of the Golden State team, they know Greg Popovich and his coaching methods.
Yeah.
They understand him mentally, so there's nothing that he can do that will slight these coaches in any kind of way that they wouldn't understand, from a motivational aspect to his team to just his coaching angles. Unfortunate part about this series, Charlton, we may not see Manu Ginobili again in an NBA uniform. After 20 years in the league, and if he's eliminated tonight by the Golden State Warriors, I don't see him. But Golden State is not going to let down, Charlton. They're on a mission right now. They are playing basketball at the Golden State level. They're hitting on all cylinders because the thing about it, Charlton, they were a juggernaut last year.
Yeah.
But now they have Kevin Durant, who has made them that anomaly that is hard to figure out.
Yeah.
Who do you go to? You think about it, Klay Thompson now is their fourth option in their offense in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
So when Klay Thompson becomes your fourth option, and he's been an all-star player, you know you have a team that's undaunted as far as what they can do ability offensive-wise. Their only weakness has been their defense, but they've picked that up, Charlton, because they move the ball in such a rapid pace, turning their offense into defense.
So, Big C, when you look at that, and based on what you're saying, going back in history, you have two dominant teams. Of course, when we think of Boston, they've been dominant. Usually they were playing the L.A. Lakers when they were going into the championships. I think they also played Houston at one time, Big C, in the NBA Finals back in the days of Larry Bird. Who does this Boston and Cleveland series remind you of? Is it kind of like the Indiana-New York Knicks series where both teams are very physical, but the Knicks, obviously, we thought had the better team, and they found a way to beat the Indiana back in, I think, 94. They went on to play in the conference finals against Houston. But does it matter? Do you think Boston has enough in the tank to even challenge Cleveland? I mean, does that make any sense, Big C?
Jonathan, they have role players in Boston. That's the difference. Those role players performed last night. The thing about Cleveland, it's a team full of superstars. When you look at Kyrie Irving, he would be a star on any other team. He's like a Michael Westbrook, just without the power. Kevin Love, we know he was a perennial all-star when he was in Minnesota, one of the leading scorers in the NBA. King James speaks for himself. Tristan Thompson, Charlton, has been the unknown superstar of the playoffs for the Cavaliers. With what he has done offensively and defensively on the board, as well as giving you double-digit points every night, this is something you're not finding from big men in the playoffs now on a consistent basis. J.R. Smith at any time can get hot and knock down to 6 to 7 threes for you in a game. So the depth of what they have in Cleveland is unparalleled. It's only matched by what you see in Golden State.
I tell you what, when you say that, Big C, it's going to be great basketball. I still don't see this series going more than 6 with Boston and Cleveland. The series that actually not scared me, but I'm close to Oakland, so it's easy to go down and see them play in the playoffs. I was thinking more that San Antonio had a better chance of knocking off Golden State than Boston had of knocking off Cleveland. But obviously Las Vegas knows a lot more than me or a lot more. Durant, if he is going to be the go-to guy, the alpha male for the Golden State Warriors, and you know a lot of guys compete, it's always been Steph Curry's team. Now, going into this game or this series with Cleveland, if it happens, would Kevin Durant be the alpha male on this team simply because he has more to prove in the fact that he does not have a championship, even though he's been a league MVP? Does that make any sense, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I don't know if he has anything to prove. He came to Golden State to win a championship, okay?
Yeah.
What he wanted to be was around a bunch of players that were unselfish. We all knew of the strife between he and Westbrook in Oklahoma City. Everybody knew that was a challenge for both of those players. We haven't seen that same type of court animosity in Golden State. You know, you got Draymond Green that could go out and be the leading scorer any night.
Yeah.
You know, you got Klay Thompson. We've seen what Steph Curry can do throughout his career for a little man to be so dominant in this big man's game. Kevin Durant speaks for himself. I think in character more than anything else, Charlton, because you looked how he was able to adapt to Golden State and vice versa. Those players adapt to him. We saw nothing. Him joining the team with a 2-time MVP.
Yeah.
So he automatically figured, hey, this is Steph Curry's team. I don't walk in with an ego. I walk in with that's what the media didn't understand. He had a lot of backlash coming to Golden State. People saying that he was selfish.
Yeah.
Okay, you tell me what individual who has an opportunity to win will walk away from that opportunity.
Yeah.
Loyalty loyalty, Charlton, in professional sports is only the last paycheck that you got.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about loyalty. Calvin Johnson, the great Megatron wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, okay?
Yeah.
Detroit, you think about how Detroit treated him. Calvin decided to retire. Detroit demanded back part of the signing bonus, okay?
Yeah.
The signing bonus that he received. Regardless of all the records that he set for them, regardless of all the surgeries he had to endure, they said, well, you didn't honor your contract because you're retiring.
Yeah.
You don't have the right to keep the money that we paid you because you don't want to work for us anymore. Because you feel that your long-term health is worth more than the money that we were paying you. We want you to give us our money back. So when you look at that, Charlton, when you talk about loyalty, loyalty is only the last paycheck that an athlete got.
Yeah, and you know when you mentioned that, I was in Southern California, just over the weekend, Big C, a lot of good things happening down in L.A. I was thinking about becoming a surfer, but I realized that when you're on water, sometimes sharks hang out under the water. And watching the movie Jaws before I went to L.A. and decided to take up surfing, that's not the best thing. So I took a pass on that, Big C. Just some music driving back to Northern California, and I heard Ice Cube on there, and he had that song about, I think it's called Cool Out or whatever, and he turned on his radio to see the Lakers beat the Supersonics, right? And I said, Supersonics? Oh, that's right. The Supersonics are now the OKC Thunder. So they have nothing to say when someone decides that they want to go to a different team because they moved their entire franchise from the great state of Washington to go down to the great state of Oklahoma. Maybe the moonshine runs a little bit deeper down in Oklahoma, from what I understand. Would that be a Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay for a team to walk away and leave a city. And people talk about loyalty, and it comes down to an athlete when they're saying it an athlete. But now they Charlton, they're mocking an African-American athlete, saying that he shouldn't have the right to leave. We talked about this last week on our show with the 11-year career in baseball, and he was blackballed from baseball after creating free agency. Okay? Taking Major League Baseball to task, an African-American. Spencer Haywood played for those same Seattle Supersonics, Charlton. Challenged the NBA on early entry, allowed all of these young athletes to come into the NBA early and not having to finish their senior year in college. So black athletes have been around to create this thing saying, if you want loyalty, pay us. If they don't want to pay, they want to get you for free and make you stay.
Yeah, I think that the great back in the day, there's so many athletes talked about that. Eric Dickerson was always saying, pay me. And oftentimes people want to have an issue with it when African-Americans make a decision to go to a different team. I think about the world of baseball and how baseball makes so much money for guys that bat about 250 to 300. It's amazing how many people are making $20 million a year. And I think about the guys that moved around, even going back in the day, the great Reggie Jackson, when he was in Oakland, he went to New York also and played there. You talk about, Barry Bonds started off in Pittsburgh. He came out to San Francisco. And baseball is more lenient with that. Pujols, he was down there with them good old boys in St. Louis, ended up down south in Southern California with Anaheim. So many great players. We talk about Alex Rodriguez, where he started his career being up in Seattle and then ended up in New York. And I think it's more embraced in baseball. I don't know why that is. Maybe because they don't see it as a predominantly African-American run sport. Big C, does that make any sense to you at all?
It does, Charles. Less than 10% now, okay? So, it's not the focal point of the media saying, well, this black athlete moved. But in the NFL and in the NBA, because if you're a beat writer, he's the guy who makes your job easy. He's your story. He's your meal ticket. So when he decides to go, who are you going to write about? So now you start lambasting this guy for having the right to leave. But Charlton, you think about it. Those beat writers, if they get an offer from another city to go, they leave. No one says anything about it. You look on television, especially the guys who blasted it. If you look at Fox Sports Network, which could be called ESPN2, realistically. Because all of those guys on Fox were all on ESPN 2 years ago. Now they're on
Yeah.
But if the African-American athlete wants to go to a better situation, what athlete does not want to win a championship? They all talk about the ultimate goal is to have that ring, that gold ring on your finger.
Yeah.
Because it lasts for life.
Yeah.
It's in infamy, okay?
Yeah.
Those dollars will come and go. But that ring will always be a cornerstone of your legacy and your family's life, Charlton.
And Big C, as you make that point again, I still think about coming back from L.A., and I realize how big Los Angeles is from the northern basin of Los Angeles coming through the Grapevine all the way down to the southern part of Orange County before you get into San Diego. There's about 15 million people that run through that basin. And being where there are two NFL football teams now that they did not have, in the last couple of years, even 20 years ago, going back to when the Raiders left and St. Louis left, and now you have the Rams in town, and you have I guess you can't even say the Chargers are in town. They're down in Carson. But there's still no talk of football other than this delay on I think it's a $1.7 billion stadium. That's delayed by 1 year. There's still so much talk about the Lakers and the Dodgers. Just talking to all the people, a couple of guys that I know that work down there at Fox Sports, there's still just talk about the Lakers and the Dodgers. Not even the Clippers are that much on top of the mind. So when you talk about sports franchise leaving, I know with Vegas having the Raiders there, they also have an NHL team. It doesn't make sense that they won't get an NBA team just because they're the hot girl in town, and everybody wants to date her at first, but when they realize she's just in it for the money, maybe she's not as pretty going. They're really not loved in Los Angeles, even though they have the great Doc Rivers, they have some great players there. I just don't see them being there long term. They want to get their own arena. They don't want to be second fiddle to the LA Lakers, Big C. You see any talk of them just going a little bit further east up to the city of Las Vegas, Big C, your thoughts?
There's a 20,000-seat arena sitting there, the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. It's devoid of a basketball team. They have an NHL team.
Yeah.
But Vegas is one of those cities that's a spotlight city. We know how attractive the NBA is. At one point, your buddies, the Maloof brothers, who own the Sacramento Kings, they own Vegas. But this is a very attractive scenario to bring the NBA to Vegas. Now, with the NHL being there, and Gary Bettman, now the commissioner of the NHL, was a former lieutenant, commissioner in the NBA under David Stern.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that between he and Sterling, the commissioner now, this is an easy scenario to see the Clippers moving to Las Vegas, okay?
Yeah.
You got Vegas there. There's no reason why the NHL will not go. Major League Baseball, Charlton, I don't see them going there because playing a game in that type of heat without having a dome stadium, and the stadium that they're talking about building is exclusive. For the Los Angeles Clippers, the Las Vegas Clippers, within the next 2 to 3 seasons, being there eastward of Los Angeles.
Yeah, and with this new revenue coming around and everybody wanting to get their own thing, it just makes sense that why stay in that market where you could be the king in Las Vegas? It is an exciting city, but it's a transient city. It's not where they have diehard people. It's not like the fight that shows up every 3 or 4 months. They have a big fight in Las Vegas. MMA has them like every month now, it seems. But a real big fight that catches your sights, it's not going to happen. They're trying to talk about McGregor and Mayweather making this fiasco happen. Maybe that will happen. But just coming out of L.A., there's just so many people, and realizing even UCLA, when they play a game, they have to go up to the Rose Bowl. That's about 40 miles away from Westwood, Big C, as opposed to just traveling to the Coliseum and playing in the Coliseum the way they used to. So that doesn't make a lot of sense, but they do it anyway. I still don't see the appeal of that. But as we come to a close on today's program, Big C, what are you looking forward to coming up in the world of sports? We know Cleveland got had. I think they were in Las Vegas partying a little bit too hard last year. Maybe they want to go back. At Golden State, they have to be on their P's and Q's against San Antonio because last night showed that even if you don't have your superstar player, you can still be had in the NBA, Big C.
They're just one game away from reaching Lord Stanley Cup final. And that would be a great move for Nashville to get to that point in the NHL. You also got the Golden State Warriors tonight, Charlton, on the precipice of knocking out the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to take their foot off the pedal. Golden State right now is clicking. We saw a little sluggishness in game one of the series. They have not slowed down since that point. So I look for Golden State to close it out tonight in San Antonio. I'm just excited about the NBA Finals. They're looking forward to getting started on this coming up weekend, Charlton, between Golden State and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and get Stanley Cup, get the puck dropped on the ice between the Predators and maybe, I believe it's going to be the Penguins coming out of the East for the Stanley Cup. But a great series nevertheless, Charlton.
Well, Big C, one more thing I want to get your point on. I was talking about that vision that I look at some of down where you live. They have the Auburn, Alabama game. Out here on the West Coast, there's USC, UCLA. Up north, they have the Cal and the Stanford thing. It's called the Big Game. And of course, they have I guess it's called the Cup, some type of cup up in Washington for Washington State and the University of Washington Huskies.
Oregon, Apple Cup.
Yeah, the Apple Cup, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Don't they use apples and moonshine, Big C, or is that just my imagination again?
Well, but a big profit in the state of Washington.
Okay, and then also up in Oregon, they got the Civil War with Oregon and Oregon State playing. Arizona State, they have their thing. And I don't understand how, I just look at it when you have these rivalry games. I think Tuscaloosa and where they play down in Mobile, I don't know how far they are between Auburn and Alabama, but for USC and UCLA, their campuses are closer than the stadiums that they play in. And I know I've been out here on the West Coast for a long time, but just driving in all that traffic, the UCLA fan base is not even UCLA. It's like Pasadena and Altadena and San Bernardino fan base. Do you have that same kind of feel down south where your campuses are closer to the stadiums, or they have to drive an hour just to get to their home games? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Auburn and Alabama, Charlton, those universities are basically about 90 miles apart, okay?
Yeah.
But when you think about it, they represent the state.
Yeah.
You're on one side of the state. You're Auburn or Alabama. Regardless of the number of universities, those are the two significant ones. And you look at those two stadiums. Jordan-Hare Stadium seats about 87,000.
Yeah.
The stadium in Alabama, Tuscaloosa, seats 103. Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Yeah.
So, when you think about the fan base between those two universities, Charlton, close to 200,000 on game day when they're both having home games. And such a rivalry. People live for that one weekend between those two teams, but they build up for it all. We don't have it down here because we still got 2-lane freeway, so we're okay. But, it's a different horse out on the West Coast, different lifestyle.
Yeah.
You guys use sports out there as a secondary entity. Here in the South, sports are life, Charlton.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, especially on the collegiate level. Again, in L.A. with all the great teams, they're still talking about the Lakers, who haven't seen the playoffs in a long time, and then the Dodgers. They've always come up short lately since 1988 when Kirk Gibson hit that home run with his bat leg, Big C. But I love it. California is such a large state. I know you good old boys down south love your football. Everybody's still talking football no matter what's going on. And I love it too, Big C. As we come to a close again, I just want to get your thoughts in the final minute on what you're looking forward to and what might we see tonight in this game, Golden State and your good old boys down in San Antonio, Big C.
Well, San Antonio will just try to hang into the game, Charlton. I think they may come out and try to be a little physical with Golden State, hoping that slows them down. But I think that's also the wrong message to send. I think the officials are going to have to keep a tight eye on the game.
Yeah.
Maybe call a couple of early technicals, because I saw some moves in the last game, but there were some shots out on the wing that the NBA missed. And I don't know if you can suspend the player. San Antonio won't be playing beyond tonight. But it's going to be very imperative that the officials don't let this game get out of hand physically, that they call a couple of early technicals, put some warning calls on the benches, and let the game be played. The NHL, with the Predators, it's going to be physical.
Yeah.
When you get a chance to get this Lord Stanley's Cup, you won't pull out all stops. And one of the things that I like about the Predators is Subban.
Yeah.
This is an look how he's infused this organization to bring them to the top of the NHL and one game away from the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great to see an African-American going around the ice, playing in the southern part of the United States, hoisting Lloyd Stanley's Cup?
Big C, that would make so much sense. And imagine how much moonshine.